Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Future Friday, we're gonna talk about filtering for truth. So let's dive deep into it. So what exactly is the problem? Why truth is not as simple as just like ta-da, truth? Well, our world is complex beyond belief, meaning I had the luxury of talking to and conversing with very smart people, and they are like masters of their own domain, and like some are working on things that I barely even able to understand, and that's in every field. There are people who are working on metallurgy. It's like, you know what, that's how this crystal lattice is, like that's how we are handling the electron mobility. I'm like, what? And then other places is like, yeah, I'm working on this quantum capacitor and this is utilizing this. I'm like, what? And that goes with everything. Like, to give you an idea how complex our world is, that lithography mask, it's not actually a mask, it's a diffraction grating. We cross that point of, oh, it's a mask that is casting a shadow. No, because that small light behaves differently. So they're like, okay, how the heck it's gonna create a wave pattern and then how it's gonna be diffracted. I'm like, what? So our world is complex beyond belief. Like beyond, like trust me, however complex you think our world is, that would be one vector, one. So it's very complex, and there are certain realities, and these realities are not like, scientific laws, or it's more of like nature's calling, so to say. So it's almost like everything we do, right? Any project, any technology, anything, there will be some people who will be benefiting and there will be some people who will be losing, and that's by law. Like, you cannot tamper with this. The best thing you can do is make it 50-50. Ideally you're gonna get 40-60, or again, the majority will hopefully will be the winning party. But again, you get the point. There will never be a scenario, we did this thing, only good things came out of it. That will never ever happen. You just want to balance it out. That's the whole point. If you start with that whole point, like this will benefit everybody, no. Again, as you get older, you kind of start to understand it. And again, that's why I said, like, it's not a scientific law. I cannot say this is like a Pareto distribution or this or that or Maslow's pyramid of need. It is there. So, and there are competing requirements for things that we do, and many times they are contradictory requirement also. For example, dams. Dams are one of the most weird thing we have, humans have to deal with it, because this is what we call a creeping disaster. Meaning, you build a dam, you're like, hey, no more flooding, gg, electricity, gg, and then 30 years later it's like, where is the river? Lol. So it's one of those things, and I found it, like, at least for Indian for friends and folks, the only way I can get them to convince about this known fact, which hilariously enough every dam does that report, is like, how long, like, what is the evaporation loss that will happen compared to its natural state, and the numbers are always way too optimistic. And again, they are not assuming global warming, so they're like, oh, next summer would be even hotter. No, they're like, no, it's just gonna be minor inconvenience. I'm like, there are minor inconvenience translates into, yeah, I'm losing maps, basically water in summer in Google Maps. So that's the reality of it. So only way I can convince Indians to listen to this is like, yeah, China is building a dam on a river that comes to India. The 5 seconds later, yeah, dam is so bad. I'm like, somehow it's okay to do it to ourselves. Again, same goes with Egypt. Egypt, and like one of its neighbor is going boom boom on. It's like, we are building a dam. It's like, why? So that's the whole point. There are many times competing requirements or sometimes contradictory requirements. You may think this is a good thing. I'm not even touching about the environmental disaster that it does. It's just contradictorily useless, like especially useless in long term, as in one human lifespan. This shows you its penalty in 30 years, especially in modern times. And in 90 years, you'll be like, what the hell were we smoking when we were building this? So it's fundamentally, yeah, life, so to say. And people have deeply personal reason. This is where things get extra complicated. You have variables that you are, okay, group A has this requirement, group B has this requirement, these are the contradictory factor, this is the majority, we're gonna make sure the majority kind of wins out, and but again, minority does not get poofed. So you're gonna do your best. Cool, awesome, GG. But here's the moment personal interest starts to get into it, and I do not mean personal in terms of profit or economics. Personal, it could be very deeply personal. It's like, I want this, some places are like accursed land, where it's like, no, this land has to be underwater. It has to be. Why? It's just like, it has to be. Like, you cannot have a discussion or conversation. Other way also it happens. It's like, this mountain top is holy. We cannot put a telescope there. Happens. You have to just deal with it. So fundamentally, it's one of those things that you have to just understand. It's like, there is a personal reason. You do not dive deeper into it. You just like, okay, this is it. What is my backup option? You have to let it go. You can waste time, dive deep into it, but personal reason is called personal reason for a reason. So Now, thankfully, the reason why humanity has made such a awesome progress is because scientific truths can be verified. Meaning, if I say E equal to mc square or Earth spins, you can verify it yourself, either by mathematics on paper or going in a lab and doing some small scale experiment, or going Oppenheimer and going boom. Or in my case, like, how do I know Earth is actually spinning? Dhruv Tara, it's a polar star, we call it in Hindi, Dhruv Tara. So I used to do long exposure photography. You can scroll back long back in my Instagram and see that I have photos of that. So again, you might say I have faked it, but again, I know my truth and I actually worked on it, actually did it, stacked it, all that. So I know, yeah, that's Earth actually spins. I have seen it. So fundamentally, science does give you that benefit where it's like it's verified, it's verifiable, awesome. But nothing else works like that. Nothing else works like that. Science, nothing else works like that. That's where it comes into morality or what's good or bad. And then there's a problem of time. Basically, what is good for sapling is not good for the tree. But again, sapling becomes into a tree. So how the hell you deal with this? So that is the fundamental problem with truth, so to say. So, and the biggest issue is that nobody is going to do it for you. It's your task. It's your actual responsibility. You cannot be mad at like, oh, why news people are lying. It's like, conflicting requirements. It's like, it's obvious. Once you start to understand these sort of layers, it's like, duh. It's like, obviously you are lying. So it's one of those things. You have to take this task in hand and actually take care of it. And you might be like, okay, is there a reason why should I seek truth? Again, you need to be truthful in some domains. You cannot be just like hopes and dreams on everything. Some domains you have to be like, no, this is my domain. Like, for example, a doctor, like he's like, medicine is my domain. I know this. He will not be like, how the heck car works? Is like, no, I turn the key, it works. Fair enough. That's not it. But again, engineer would be completely opposite. How the heck this medicine works? I do not know, but I know how this engine works. So you have to have some domain where you know what is the truth. So it goes personal for you. You have to know this thing. Penalty is that it could have individual effects on you. Basically, if you do not know the certain truths and like you've made some decision based on some false premises, it could backfire on you. It's almost like investing in NFT and thinking you will be rich. So there is certain complexity in this whole equation. So thankfully, the best tool we got is zoom out, meaning there are certain laws. Now, these laws are in physics. So these laws make sure that no matter what measurement you do, you will always have noise into it. Like no matter what you do, you're like, okay, we have the atmosphere, we're going to analyze the temperature, we're going to analyze, yeah, you will never be able to make a prediction. You'll be like completely useless because of the noise. So fundamentally, you're starting to do a lot of data gathering and all that, you will find there is a lot of noise. It will like, it does not make sense. But again, thankfully, math has a solution. It's called averaging and zooming out, especially in time domain. For example, if I give you a data point of, let's just say year 2020, can you figure out based on that year 2020 that is global warming happening or not? Answer is no, you cannot. You do not have any trajectory that can confirm you without any shadow of doubt that this actually happened. You could be like, this may be the base state. It could be like, Earth is like a mini Venus. But again, once I start to plot data over long enough period of time, basically you start with 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020, then you're like, okay, now it starts to make sense. That's the whole point. For example, there were early days, there were a lot of speculation. It's like, oh, what if the sun is expanding and all that? It's like, no, we know that that's not the case. It's like, how can we show sure about that? Well, here's the, you start the timer, you take a stopwatch, you go, you do that in 1960s data collection. Okay, in that data collection you figure out what was the carbon concentration on the atmosphere, the best ratings you can get out of it. Okay, so let's just say by that time it was 325 parts per million. Cool, awesome, GG. Now at that point in time you start plotting how much oil we are burning. You do not know what is the full volume of Earth's atmosphere, so you cannot calculate that, but you can calculate how much oil we are burning. Again, close enough will work here. It's close enough. Now you start to calculate basically based on 2010 how much oil we were drinking. Okay, how much it changed our parts per million. That will give you data. Again, that data in itself is not that useful, but again, now you do it in 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020, 2025. Now you have a data where it's like, if this much oil is consumed, this much parts per million will change based on your basically atmosphere rating. Right? Like, and 5 year, you have to average the data of 5 year. 1 year, it's too messy. 5 year, you have to do that. And again, God help people who have to do it from right now, because pandemic changed this data a lot. So again, that's why I said aliens will know pandemic happened on Earth. So now you plot it. Then you plot temperature on that. And if all these three lines start to align, that removes all the doubt from it. the doubt of like, oh, is it actually there? Yes, it's actually there. How do we know? Well, now I'm gonna predict an absolute prediction that in 2026, if we burn this much oil, so first you lock your time horizon, 2026, cool, awesome. If we burn this much oil, again, you could have another pandemic that reduces your oil consumption, so you do need another locking vector. Locking vector is if we burn this sort of fuel, like let's say this much crude oil was burned, take that variable, that will affect the ppms, basically parts per million of CO2 by this much. So let's say right now we are averaging at, let's say 375 something, let's just go with that, and 375, it will go to, let's say 385, again averaged over 5 years, average over some whole year you have to average, and then it will directly affect the temperature rating from, let's say 58 degree Fahrenheit, it will go to 58.5 degree Fahrenheit. You have to predict that before that, and again, it will not make sense in 1 year. It will make sense once you have this much data, and it's like, yep, all data points. Oil consumed, ta-da. Atmosphere affected, ta-da. Temperature risen, ta-da. That removes suns as a variable. Again, how could we know that sun was a variable in this sort of scenario? If our ppm starts to go down, basically parts per million of CO2 starts to go down, and the temperature starts to still goes up, then we know. Or something where it's like, our parts per million are still rising, like CO2 emission, it keeps going, but our temperature starts to go down. It's like, what the hell is happening? We are burning more fuel, more CO2 poisoning, and more temperature drop. Yeah, sun is starting to throttle its system. So that's how we know. All three data points are matching. First, we have average enough data that, yeah, it's a known thing. Temperature effect, known. Basically, parts per million of CO2, known. So all of that in average scenarios, predicted. That's how we know. So this is thankfully the luxury that we possess because of mathematics. Another aspect of zoom out, you must have seen like places, right? Place, your town, your village, whatever have you, your city. You may think, okay, what if I put a lot of sensors in every building top, every mobile tower? Could I be able to predict weather? No, noise will just make it lol. The moment you put a satellite, ta-da! Think about it. Like the best tool for weather prediction is freaking a satellite that is far up. The further the up it is, the better it becomes. Heck, that's why we put so many weather satellites in geostationary. Oh, it can see almost like, half of the planet. Oh, now it can fully predict. I'm like, what the hell? That's the point. Zooming out is a mathematical requirement, so to say. And you can only focus on things that can be tested and proven falsehood. That's why I specified. So for example, our CO2 keeps going up, our parts per million keeps going, our oil consumption keeps going, our time keeps going forward, temperature starts to go down. Yes, global warming was the effect of sun. That is not happening, has not happened. And again, we had reached enough of a point where it's like, bro, last 20 years of data is more than good enough. And if we keep rolling on this 20 years, we will not have another 90 years left after that point. So there was a point of where can we verify it without any shadow of doubt? Yes, we crossed that threshold. Long ago, we crossed it. So there was a point where it's like, okay, if again, pandemic was also a perfect, recalibration, where it's like, okay, will CO2, what if natural causes are releasing CO2? No. Pandemic stopped all our oil system. Oil dropped exactly the, basically, CO2 emission stopped exactly matched to that. Like it was not like, oh, our oil consumption gone down, the CO2 emission also went down. No. Now, like how we know CO2 emission? We have satellites to measure that. So fundamentally, the moment you zoom out, you can see far more clearly. And you must have that, true or false. You must have that. It must be a binary where it's like, okay, this is it or not. Again, when you are researching, you can go YOLO on it. But when you are reaching a point, whether it is true or false, it has to be a binary. It's true or false. If you're working on it, figuring out hypothesis, go YOLO on it. But once you reach a theory point, it has to be verifiable, whether it's true or false. It becomes basically hypothesis, go YOLO. Theory, it has to be binary. Now we come to the spicy part, EV. I got a lot of hate for this. So let's just say EV is a real thing, okay? So what would me as an Indian will notice? Well, first point would be air quality will improve. Oil consumption will go down. Awesome. Now here's the deal. What happens if the country is still drinking more oil? Basically, our oil consumption for 2015 was less versus 2025. Something has gone wrong. And what if people keep saying EV is cheap, EV is cheap? So something is not lining up here. You have confliction here. So how that confliction can be resolved? Well, there could be simple reality. First, EV must be limited. And again, that's why I specified, do not look into EV pictures, especially if it's coming from a tiny European nation, which has very tiny population. Look into the three large population, India, China, and USA. Brazil, if you can keep going down, top 10, majority of Earth's population is in that top 10. So focus on that, and that gives you a complete pattern, so to say. Average, zoom out, data. So EV must be very limited. Basically, you are only talking about cars, you are not even touching trucks, or it's heavily subsidized. This is the biggest problem for us Indians, so to say. So because of this subsidy, again, it's same goes with America also. Half of the EV companies will go poof like this if subsidies are revoked. So if this thing is true, what will public notice? Well, public will notice heavily subsidized will cause food prices to rise. Why? Well, if fuel prices goes up, basically subsidies are like government's money from its coffers. Who are the people who are putting money into the coffers? It's taxpayer. So what they can do? They can remove basically subsidies from some other sector. Subsidy could be coming from diesel, which again happens to some extent, plus and minus it does happen. So you can take subsidy from there, or subsidy from some other places that people were not paying attention to. You can take subsidies from there. Or worst case scenario, you increase taxes, or even worst case scenario, you increase inflation. So you have all these three throttles. Basically, take from somewhere else, dump it somewhere else. You increase taxes, or worst case scenario, you destroy the currency. So if all of these things will happen, public will notice that their purchasing power is going down. And again, the most important part, your food prices are going high, meaning your farmers will actually talk about this. It's like, bro, if diesel keeps going up, we have to sell the produce at higher cost. Otherwise, we will not be able to run our tractors. And trucking companies will be like, yeah, we can't ship it at this sort of a profit margin. We have to increase it. So this will be how you can verify whether it's EV is actually happening or not. And reality is it's not. Now question becomes, why somebody would be lying about that? Well, there could be many reasons. First reason could be planned obsolescence. There could be profit motives into it. There could be greenwashing. And there could be lack of understanding. Basically, how the heck and people fell for NFT? Lack of understanding. So all of these, again, I do not know what exact mix was there. Again, because it's a personal thing. Somebody might be like, they might be thinking that they are doing a good thing, but they might be burning a hole in a planet atmosphere. Basically, people who come up with the Freon system, they were not trying to burn a hole into ozone layer. It was just the outcome of it because of lack of understanding. So same thing happens. And again, why would company want to go from a vehicle to electric vehicle? The best reason for that is planned obsolescence. Basically, vehicle is the last thing that we have remaining that actually crosses a decade. Where it's like, I buy it now and I supposed to have this after 10 years. Like we used to have that same for refrigerators, washing machines, lol. Those things have become lol now. So cars is the last thing. And again, profit, there's so much profit. There's like so much profit. It's like $2 billion for Tesla for supercharging. I'm like, wow, so much profit. So, and greenwashing, again, it's much harder to actually sit down and actually solve the problem rather than just like greenwash it. So again, if I were a politician, I will do the same thing. It's much easier to greenwash. Yay! I'm like, how many people are actually going to sit down and calculate the things? And it's like, okay, wait a minute. In 2015, you started this FAME scheme to get electric adoption. And now it's in phase 2. Now you're paying 10,000 rupees per kilowatt of the battery manufacturing. So basically, you're paying not only for the subsidies of the companies, you are also paying subsidy per vehicle wise also. And now you're planning for 10,000 crore. That's like $1.5 billion sort of thing for e-mobility push. And you also have to buy a fuel. So it's double dipping. Penalty would be either in taxes will go up or subsidies will be cut from something important. Like again, hospitals have to be subsidized. I'm like, bruh, we need hospitals. So all those sort of scenarios is like, we get double dipped from all sides. It's not comfortable. So that's how we know whether EV is actually true or false. Now let's compare the same data points. Solar, same timeline, 2015 to 2025. Now, testable point. What would be the testable point? Testable point would be measurable national power, aka a nation has a mix of energy going into it. For example, in India, there will be three big ones. Solar is now, it wasn't there as in 2015. If you are told about anybody about our current scenario, people would have laughed out of you. Like, bro, what are you smoking, man? But again, right now it's real. So we have a lot of hydro resources, we have a lot of coal power plants. So these two are like, backbone. We have other mix into, but these two are like the heavy puppies. And again, in 2015, if government started to invest into this ecosystem, I should notice a fundamental change. It should not be like 0.01% energy comes from tidal power. No. I need bigger numbers than that, like measurable performance. Now, subsidy less utilization. This is the perfect point. If we crosses this threshold, that makes it's true, meaning it's self-sustaining now, meaning all the labor that we put into it is starting to turn a profit. Another aspect would be there will be grid stability issue. Once you actually start to dump enough energy into the grid which does not have grid inertia, it will cause havoc into the system. And we should know about this. We should hear about this. So, okay, those are testable points. Let's dive deep into it. So, annual solar generation in 2024 crossed 144 terawatt hour. That's a lot. Like how lot? That's 21% of country's mix. That's a lot of power. Like a power plant only goes into like, hundreds of megawatt hour, or some goes to gigawatt hour. Terawatt hour, that's significant. That's no longer a small chump change. That is significant. Even for a hydro dam, that is significant. So that's there. And how much installed capacity do we have? 100 plus gigawatt of cumulative capacity exists as of now in 2024. And here's the, what was it during 2015? 3 gigawatts. You see the difference? 3 gigawatt, 100 plus. Now tell me, which one do you think is self-fulfilling? So solar has reached that point. And you may be like, okay, how do we know that it's actually doing not just some number fudging? Power tariff. Government has changed basically how electricity works. Basically, many of the European nations and some American cities and some districts, places, they have a point where it's like, if you drain energy at the night time, it's cheaper. Cool, awesome. In India, it's opposite. If you drain energy during the daytime, it's cheaper. Central Government Amendments of Electricity Rights of Consumers Rule 2020. Yeah, it was not. It was filed in 2020 by introduction of time of day tariff, simplification of smart metering and all that. So basically, translation: what you're gonna get cheaper electricity. Basically, per unit cost would be 20% less. Burn as much energy as you want in daytime. Why? We have so much solar. Our solar is seen from the sun. Sun seen from the low Earth orbit. Yeah, that's literally from a satellite, not a helicopter, a satellite. And yeah, we have space. We good. And our current rate of production, we can actually have very large percentage of energy mix done by solar, and other things will be the weaker link. Like grid stability would be the weak link, not the solar part. Solar part is like, bro, we good, we got this. And again, if government is doing that, there are two options they can do. First, consume during the daytime. Okay, good, awesome. But again, it does not give you inertia and does not give you resilience. So how do you solve resilience? India has like around lots of coal power plants, 600 coal power plants. And each of these power plants have multiple units. So basically 660 megawatt, 3 generators like that, 3 unit system would be there. So they're like, hey, what if we keep one as a black start capable? One, don't touch it. 2 of them, convert them into energy storage. How can you do that? Ta-da! E2S Power. Thankfully, a European company. So all of you guys can actually look into it. E2S Power. And this is working with the Indian Power Corporation, and they are working in Asansol, a small location next to in West Bengal. And they had a coal power plant which had to be decommissioned. And yeah, that's another thing. We are decommissioning a lot of coal power plants. So they're like, hey, what if we take all the equipment that is already there? The substation is there, the turbo generator is there, the steam ecosystem is there, everything is there. But we cannot afford to pay for the coal, or it's just not desirable anymore. What if we replace that coal furnace part with graphite blocks, which you heat up during the daytime when electricity is cheap and dump during the evening time when it is the most expensive? Ta-da! Now, there is a penalty. It does come with a ludicrously bad round trip efficiency, meaning if you dump 100 megawatt hour into it, you're only going to get 30 megawatt hour out of it. That's the penalty. The good part, grid inertia. No extra investment. Basically, your plant remains, the coal power looks exactly the same as it used to look. Nothing changes. The people keeps their job. The infrastructure that we put money into stays exactly the same. And all we have to change is just, hey, instead of coal burning, what if graphite heating? And yes, you can get exact steam pressure in that as you get from normal coal fire. So, and again, graphite blocks can easily withstand heat of 3000 degrees Celsius, assuming it's in an inert atmosphere, aka nitrogen, argon, or helium, hydrogen also. But again, hydrogen is very naughty. Hydrogen and carbon, high temperature, not desirable. So you can get really good stuff out of there. So Indian government is working in all of that. And another personal anecdote, which I am seeing it right nowadays, subsidy is less utilized. And basically, I put solar. I did not pay for subsidy. Why? I pay for subsidy as in like you have to file paperwork and all that jazz. I did not do that. Why? Electricity in my location is really bad. Like, unfortunately, it's really bad. If I had just bought a battery-less system, just like, grid tie inverter, most of the time it would be useless for me because power is so bad. But I had to buy a battery. And again, if I had good electricity and electricity was expensive, I still would have done solar because again, it would have made sense. And grid would have acted my battery. These things will become actual battery eventually. So This is how we know that solar is a real thing. Lot of petrol pumps, because again, especially in these three states, UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, these three states have really bad power uptime. So these remote locations, they get really horrid power. So they are like, yeah, we have commercial power which is expensive, and we are barely getting electricity, and we are running on generator most of the time. So they're like, hey, what if we turn solar, completely solar, and disconnect the freaking grid? So they save a fixed cost, goes down, and they have to run generator once in a while anyway to keep it active and healthy. So most of the time solar is like, I got you. Sometimes if let's say it rains for a long time, it's like, yeah, generator is left. Sometimes they have to shut down solar for maintenance. Cool, no problem, generator has got you there. And again, when in good times, you can just like run it on solar and just maintain your generator. So that's happening without subsidy. So that's how we know that this thing is real. It's here, it's positive, and at current rate, if other things can catch up, basically the energy storage part, and this is converting our old infrastructure into useful tools for tomorrow. And then we need some big daddy powers, which is a bit more efficient. That is closed loop pumped hydro. Once we have those two puppies working, then solar can easily reach 50% or 70% by 30 years from now. It would be easy for us, like easy. Again, remember, we went from 3 gigawatt in 2015 to 100 plus in 2024. 9 years. GG. So we're good. This is how we know that this actually happened. EV did not happen. Now we come to the most bitter part of it. It's about yourself, because you have to understand, nobody can tell you the truth. I would love to tell you to your face, where it's like, hey, watch news channel, they will tell you the truth. Unfortunately, we both know that's not the reality. So yeah, it is what it is. So nobody can tell you. You have to accept that it is what it is. You have to accept it. And lie by omission is a very horrifying tool. For example, if I have to troll you, basically I can tell you, we're gonna have cheap hydrogen because we're gonna have so much solar. And it's like, yeah, technically true. I'm just omitting where the hell you're getting so much water. And again, because most people are not going to sit down and actually do the mathematics, it's like, oh, 1 liter of water does not actually have that much hydrogen. So lie of omission. I'm telling you the absolute truth, just removing one of those details, and then it's like, lol. And didn't I tell you we had so much hydro dams that we do not have water security for upcoming times? So yeah, that's the problem. Lie of omission is a very horrifying thing. And again, what can you do? The first thing, you must zoom out and must do holistic system analysis. Look at every vector. That's why I'm so hell-bent on hybrid system rather than going full electric. Full electric was a really bad idea. So that's the whole point. Holistic system analysis, and that will allow you to filter out noise, and it will allow you to see trends. So once you can see the trend, then it's like there is no discussion. It's like, bro, we good, we got this, absolute. And you might feel a bit burnt out because of this sort of things once you actually start to look into it. But you have to understand, humans are not magic. Neither you nor I, no one is magic. So we are flawed creatures. What does that mean? That simply means that's what makes us human. We have to deal with that. Like sunken cost fallacy. It's super easy to analyze sunken cost fallacy from outside, but you have to understand people have personal reason. That's why in the first slide I said, if it's personal, you just have to let it go. So it is what it is. You have to accept it. You have to work around it. Like, this is a fallacy. This is a penalty. And the most bitter thing that you have to acknowledge, and it will make you a better person overall, is that truth may not be what you wished for. Do not ask me why I'm so burnt on hydrogen or what I was doing in my school years. I will not talk about it. Or why people are like, oh, we're gonna have I cannot tell you how many news channel and Discovery, National Geography, and this and that were like, no, fusion is happening. I was in school. I was like, yeah, this is gonna save us. This is gonna be awesome. It's not gonna be radiation free. At that time, I did not understand this has more radiation than anything else. Again, the reactor has more radiation. The waste output is negligible, but the reactor is bonkersly radioactive. This puppy has a neutron emission that makes alpha, beta, gamma looks like bitch please. So this is hot. And again, we have achieved break even. You need 200x. We barely reaching 2, not even 2. And I cannot tell you how many Indian news channels like China has made artificial sun. But it is what it is. I used to be very angry about that, but then I realized, same way I'm a flawed creature, so are they. It does not matter whether they're getting paid or they should tell the truth or they should be held to a higher standard. So, and again, truth may not be what you wished for. Again, I wished for a world where a news channel are telling the truth, but we are humans. So this was my presentation on basically how do I filter it, and hopefully you have found some kernel of truth into this where you can utilize these sort of tools and tricks to figure out your truth and be damn sure about it. Well, hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.